Okay, so what are the fairness criteria? Okay, well we could spend a lot of time arguing and talking about these, but these are the big four. There's lots of other PhD theses been written about other fairness criteria, but these are the big four. So the first thing is the alternative that wins the first place vote should be the winner. Why? Because I got more first place votes than anybody else. The second criterion is called the Condorcet criterion, and it's just, well, that's good, but really, if alternative beats every other alternative in a head-to-head matchup, that one should be the best, right? And your suggestion there, ma'am, was kind of getting to that. Like, let's eliminate some of the lower ones and then do some head-to-head votes. Okay. These last two are a little more complex, and to illustrate those, it takes a little more time, which I didn't have today. So we're going to just show them here, but we won't talk about them again. So monotonicity, it just simply means if somebody changes their votes, if you voted again and they didn't change they changed their votes in favor of the preferred one before, then that one should continue to be the winner. And then the last one is if one of the alternatives drops out of the race, that shouldn't change the order that the other alternatives were selected. Okay, so it's irrelevant that one dropped out because it wasn't in the running anyway. So these are four commonly accepted items that we want to make sure that any voting system tries. Here's our IDI party vote, and you can see that who would win here? The family picnic by one vote, yeah. Okay, and that seems logical that it should win. But if casino night was selected, you said casino night, you're violating this logical fairness criteria. Okay. So the next one, the Condorcet criterion, says, well, forget about who won the most first place votes. Let's just do voting head-to-head matchups with all the alternatives, paired comparison, and see who would win. And if some alternative beats every other alternative, it should be the winner. That's fair, right? So is your name Doug? Doug. So Doug intuited it was casino night, or maybe he did his mental calculator. Yeah, and so casino night does win over the other two. So that should be, it's fair. Casino night is it. Okay. So there's the head-to-head competition. And if we pick family picnic, Doug's going to raise his hand and say, guys, that isn't fair. I want the casino night, and it beat everybody else. Okay, there's Condorcet, a dandy of a Frenchman. Yeah, so here's our 5 steps. This kind of can make a little cycle there if you do the pulsing thing, divergence, convergence. But you want to try to hit each one of these steps each time. And that's those should be able, you should be able to remember those. They're pretty straightforward. So let's talk about different ways to do that. And so we're going to talk about voting as one way, and we'll talk about the pros and cons of that. When you get to steps 2 and 3, the making of the assessments and the sharing assessments, there's kind of 3 flavors that are in the literature out there. Everybody heard the Delphi method? Okay, a couple. It was invented by Rand back when Rand first got started and was the place to work. All the smart people went to work for Rand, and they said, a lot of these things we're trying to figure out with, and they were doing nuclear exchange with the Soviet Union at that time. A lot of these things are really hard, and we've got no test data on them, so we're going to need expert judgment. Oh my God, expert judgment. Well, how are you going to do with these experts? Won't they bias each other? And so the smart guy said, well, we'll do it without them talking to each other. That way they won't bias each other. So they made the Delphi method, where at individual anonymity, none of the experts knew who the other experts were, not only their names or anything about them. All they saw was an assessment. And they did make individual assessments, and then the computer would pool them and send them back out again, and they would do this 3 or 4 times until the group anonymously converged on an answer. Sometimes they didn't converge, so the smart guy said, well, just take the average. So they did that. Nominal group technique was invented from the opposite side of the professional fence. These were the Birkenstock sandal guys at the National Training Institute. These were the let's share, guys, today, and we'll have a group hug when we're done. Okay? and it was great. And they said, you know, we might influence each other if we just blurt out the answers first. So let's write them down first. Each person, write them down on a piece of paper, and then I'll collect them up, or you can just call them out to me, and I'll write them on the wall, and you know, we'll sort of then talk about them. But that will help prevent this bias problem. Okay. So nobody was anonymous because they're all sitting in the same room, and eventually you know whose idea was whose or whose assessment belonged. But it's the individual assessment. Then a third methodology was developed by systems engineers, I must say. They said, what the hell are you doing? You don't need all this stuff. Let's just get in the room and come up with the answer. It's got to be obvious, right? So they did a consensus group methodology, which means no individual assessments, no anonymity. Let's just talk about it. Okay. What do you think the assessment should be? I don't like that answer. I like it to be 5. You think it should be 10? Why do you think it's 10? So it's just back and forth. Boom, 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 boom. And through that interchange, that combative, that, I don't know, Socratic interchange, I don't know what you call it. Okay, what would you call it? It's competitive interchange. Through that competitive interchange, we will forge the right answer. So that was a consensus group. So out of these 3 methods, the one which we're going to sort of focus on is the middle one, nominal group technique. Okay, it's the one that sort of survived. It's become mainstream, and I think I talked about it in my last talk. It's the one that you really should use. Delphi has been a bit discredited. Consensus group is, well, so we're going to focus on the consensus group. So the keys there in steps 2 and 3 are to get individual assessments first, and then talk about it. And so you know whose assessment was who. So you can have a conversation. I see you put 5 down. That's interesting. I put 10. I must be missing something. Why do you think it was 5? So first of all, you want to state the question very clearly. Everybody understands what it is. And everybody makes their own individual assessment. And then you display those assessments for everybody to see and say, wow, look at that. Wow, a lot of people said it was 10. I thought it was 5. I wonder what I'm missing, or maybe they're missing something. So you have a chance to revise, and then you combine them to try to make a group assessment. So that's pretty good. Hey, isn't that what we just talked about? That is the best way to move towards convergence. So we're right on. Yeah. So some people, they're going to be wanting to do that gambling night. You know, hey, casino night. Woohoo! And other people are going to want the dinner cruise. Oh, with a moonlit night. Like that. And yeah, oh yeah, go for the hot dogs and the ice cream. Yeah. And some people don't care. This is not even on their radar scope, right? They have other priorities. So, okay, so we kind of know what we need to do, how we're going to do it. Now, what are the things that we want to use these techniques on? So I think of them in 2 chunks, 2 categories. One is the ranking and swing weights. This is when you have lists of things and you have to put them in priority or give them some sort of relative importance. And so there's a range of things we can do to help the group come to convergence there. Then the other set are the estimating, rating, scoring, the things where you're providing a number or an assessment of something. And you're not really comparing it to something else. You're just trying to say, you know, like you know, what's Scott's IQ? You know, you know, let's all, we can estimate that, right? But we're not comparing Scott to Doug. That wouldn't be fair to Doug. Or maybe not fair to Scott. Okay. So it makes a little acronym. It's kind of, you have to stretch a little bit, but I like mystery answers. And, you know, wouldn't it be nice if we all had like a little mystery answers in our pocket? You know, you could carry them around, and when people ask you the hard things, and mystery answers could come up with, and keep you warm at night too. Let's go on with our first set there, ranking and swing weighting. So we're going to go to voting here, and we're going to do it kind of knowing full well that really what we're doing is we're polling people. So we're going to poll them. That'll be their first assessment. We're going to display them and look at it and talk about it, and then we can repoll again. You can repoll people as many times as you want. So think of it as polling instead of voting. But what we're really trying to do is reach consensus as a group. So we're showing them how the other people in the group responded to the question, and then working towards consensus.